Insight. The first ever series to analyze the unexplored aspects and issues of Carnatic music. Dear Rasikas, welcome to the 10th episode of our Insight series. All this while we discussed about various components of Carnatic music. Today we will be discussing about the role of the accompaniments in a Carnatic concert. As you all know, the Carnatic Kacheri is not a solo presentation. It is a team effort where the accompaniments also come together into the fold to create that enchanting music for you. That is, we have the main artist, he may be a vocalist, and to his right we have the mridangist, and to the left we have the violinist, and then the other accompaniments like the ganjira, ghatam and morsing as optional instruments. But the basic minimum which would be a part of a Carnatic Kacheri is the vocalist with the violin and the mridangam. Here I would like to first emphasize on the enormous contribution that an accompaniment makes towards the concert itself in a Carnatic music. In Hindustani music, we see that we have the harmonium most often as a melodic instrument and the tabla as a percussion. Here, the harmonium follows the melodic mood of the main composer. That is, if he is singing in ragam like Yaman, that mood of that particular composition will be extended by the harmonium player. Similarly, the main role of the tabla here is to keep the tal for the main artist. You would not see a Hindustani musician putting talam the way you do like this. If you are going to put adi talam, we put like this, or if you are putting khanda chapu, we put like this. So whatever it is, the main artist puts the talam in a Carnatic concert, whereas the lead to the tal is given by the tabla player in a Hindustani concert. So here, what I want to emphasize is that the role of the violin and the percussion instrument goes much beyond than being just an accompaniment. They add value to the compositions, they add value to the manodharma and make it a very, very enriching experience. The term accompaniment, if you look in the dictionary, it refers to a support or a musical background. This may seem quite suitable for other systems, but as I mentioned earlier also, the accompanist is not just some kind of a background in Carnatic music, he has a very, very vital role to play. First, I would like to take up the violin, which is a very, very important melodic accompaniment in the Carnatic Kacheri. Here, as I mentioned earlier also, whether it's a flute kacheri or a veena kacheri or a saxophone concert, everywhere the violin seems to be the most ideal accompaniment in terms of many, many factors which contribute to it. The first thing is, of course, its tonal quality. It has a very unique tonal quality which matches the vocal music very, very well, and it is said to be very, very near to the voice. And similarly, any instrument, if you take, be it the mandolin or the saxophone, somehow the violin seems to blend very appropriately with the tonal quality of the instrument. Second thing is how it maintains a sense of continuity in the concert. This is the advantage of a bowed instrument, unlike a stringed instrument like a veena or a wind instrument like a flute, where the maintenance of continuity is slightly a hurdle, whereas because of the bowing technique here, you can sustain the note as long as you want. For example, if a main artist is singing a raga alapana and sings tadan and he stops there and then proceeds to the next idea. While he is stopping on the Gandhara there, the violin, you would have observed, keeps the mood of the main artist by playing the Gandhara as he bows that note and gives him some kind of a bass to take off to the next note. Of course, this is not the only way in which accompaniment is done. There are several techniques to it, in the sense that, for example, if you take a raga alapana, the violinist may accompany in the way I told you earlier, that is to keep the mood of that particular artist and play only the vital notes and pausing in between and continuing the note itself. Or sometimes what he does is to follow intricately the patterns as sung by the vocalist. That is, if he's going to sing a very fast phrase, immediately you would see that the violinist, if it's really an expert maestro, you would see that he'll be able to produce verbatim what has been sung by the main artist. This is a very, very interesting thing to observe, I would say. Rather, it's like more like a conversation between the main artist and the violinist. It's a musical conversation, I would say. And here the violinist has to be very, very faithful, in the sense that he has to only produce what is being sung by the main artist. Suppose I am singing, if he's going to follow me and sing, if he's going to go on a different track like that, then the whole beauty of that form itself gets distorted. So whatever the main artist is trying to create, he has to follow that same path and accompany him that way. So that is one of the important role of the violin here. Sometimes you also see that the violinist keeps silent at times, because that silence actually gives room for imagination of the main artist. So here you would see that certain combinations work out very well. For example, a particular ex-violinist and a particular vocalist are much sought after as a combination, because their thought process actually blend very beautifully. And the audience also find it very, very exciting and very, very interesting to watch how the violinist and the vocalist interact here. And another main important thing about the violin is the wide range that it is able to encompass, in the sense that we have violin for male Shruti, we have violin for female artists, that is even G, G sharp, A also, you are able to tune the violin to. And of course, a very, very simple reason that the violin is very lightweight instrument and very, very easy to carry. Now, coming to the compositional aspect, how does the violin accompany here? It is quite different from how one does in the Hindustani music. Here you see that in the composition, again it's very, very challenging. At every stage I always say that the role of a violinist is very, very challenging, because for example, if you take the song Maru Gelera I am singing, there is not just one patantara for a particular composition, and there are umpteen number of ways in which even a Sangati can be interpreted. So probably that violinist would have learnt a particular composition in a different way, but then he cannot adopt that methodology and play while the main artist is singing. He has to immediately try to listen, he has to assimilate the whole thing and respond in a jiffy. And that's really very, very challenging. In Neraval, in Swaram, that becomes all the more challenging, because the violinist is never able to anticipate what is going to come from the main artist. Here again, I would say that while the main artist needs to have 100% concentration, the violinist needs to have 200% concentration, because the system is also so beautiful that where the main artist probably would have at least planned in terms of what ragam is going to sing, a particular korve or a korapu, he would have planned all that. But the violinist seldom knows what is going to come on stage. And here that anticipation has to be utmost, otherwise the concert will not be successful. In this you see that when the anticipation level is really 100%, then that combo really works very well. And in fact, many artists, especially in the December festival, they look up the concert list to see if this artist is being accompanied by this violinist and this mridangist, then it makes for a great combo, and they look forward to such concerts. Here the violinist, another important thing is the concept of restraint. That is a great virtue that has to be possessed by the violinist, in the sense that while the main artist is singing something, even if he has got a greater level of imagination than the vocalist, he has to maintain restraint and control, and that's where he scores very, very high. The other important artist on stage is the percussion vidwan, that is the mridangam artist. He plays a very, very important role in terms of enhancing the music, enriching the music, I would say embellishing the music. And here he's not playing to the thalam, but to the music of the main artist, that is the vocalist or anybody for that matter. So accompaniment for the music is something very, very intricate. And you see that though there are certain basic patterns for playing, how the final structure will sound depends much on the artist, in the sense that every percussionist has got his own repertoire, but then when he comes on stage, he has to immediately try to connect to the main artist and see how he is rendering a particular composition, and immediately he has to respond to that through his rhythmic accompaniment in terms of enriching. So unlike many other systems, I would say here, beyond accompanying, the percussionist has got a very, very important role to play. When we start off with the composition, you see that very, very great stalwarts do not immediately start performing. They gauge the kala pramana of the composition, the mood, the bhava, and then join in after a point of time. And that gives a beautiful aesthetic experience. In fact, here I would like to just for the Rasika make you understand that when you start learning the mridangam, for example, a young artist is so bubbling with energy that he has got so many patterns running in his mind that when he starts accompanying, he tries to enforce or he tries to put into the concert whatever he has learned. But as he starts refining as an artist, and then after a few years of concert experience, he understands that not everything that we learn in terms of rhythmic patterns get to be a part of the concert. We have to really pick and choose as to which kind of pattern will be appropriate for a composition. In the sense that though there may be umpteen number of compositions in Kalyani, some compositions may have a very serene kind of a content in terms of the Sahitya Bhava. Some may be very joyful in their approach in terms of the content. So he has to also understand all that, and he has to decide whether he has to play robustly or whether he has to be very subdued in the playing. Again, sometimes you see that, as I mentioned in one of my earlier series also, when something is very, very serene and you see that the music seems to fill the whole atmosphere, a very, very great stalwart mridangam artist would think that it would be better to abstain from playing. It would be better to keep silent at that point of time, because that silence that he is trying to produce, I would say he is producing silence. It is not just silence, but the mridangam artist is actually producing silence which is so poignant with meaning, so pregnant with meaning. And here you should also observe as a Rasika that after the silence, when he starts playing the strokes, it becomes multifoldly enhanced, that